In this episode, we'll be mounting the AC unit on top of the roof, and I'll show you how to go from this to this. Welcome back to this ongoing series about the renovation of my 1949 Spartan Manor camper trailer. So this arrived. This is the air conditioner, heat pump for the RV. That's a lot bigger than I expected. And before we install it, we've got a lot of work to do on the trailer itself. There's the forward vent, central vent that we'll be working on this episode, and the aft vent. Here's the center one, and actually I think I should take this off first. To work on the roof of the trailer without denting the skin, I'm once again using my neighbor Scott's great method of putting a plank from my roof to a ladder bolted to his fence. Here I am removing all the silver sealant from around the flange of this vent to start taking it out. These hex head screws were particularly buried in sealant, so I had to chisel each one free before I could unscrew it. The center roof vent out. Now we just need to clean all those up. You can see here's another patch just like on the forward one. It took me about 10 minutes of using the scraper to get most of the silver sealant off. And I think because it's so hot today, the old silver sealant paint was peeling up fairly easily. Cleaning up the rest of it with a grinder and a wire wheel. While it's looking nice and clean, you can see here the roof is looking a bit like Swiss cheese from all the old rivet and screw holes. I'm not too worried about these holes because they're going to end up being covered by the new seal we put in for the AC unit. So I'm just filing back the sheet metal to make it even with the inside again. Here I was having some success using the edge of the file kind of like a saw. The hole needs to be 14 3/16 of an inch, and I believe it's going to be a bit smaller than that, so I'll have to go and measure that. As expected, this is only 14 inches. I need 3/16 of an inch more. And this is 14 and a 16th, so I need 2/16 or an eighth of an inch more this way. Push that back a little bit, and it's about 14 and a quarter. I'd rather have an extra 16th of an inch wiggle room than not. So I was able to move this one, and I'm not going to secure it here until I move this one. And from looking underneath, I can see there are some rivets down below that I need to undo, but it's also riveted under here, of course. So I have to take this patch off and redo that as well. Here's the piece we want to move in by about 3/16 of an inch. So some rivets right there. It looks like 2 rivets right there. There we go, 14 and a quarter. We just got 1 rivet in. I had to drill a hole for another. So I'm wondering if it might be easier to take this out and just bend it anew, because that's quite a gap. There we go. Let me see, I actually want to bend it right about there again. Let's try and use this. This is a vice grip. There we go, I just have to get it started. And then it bent there instead. That looks pretty good. Stick that end in there. Here are the original holes it was in, and that's about 14 and a quarter inch, which was good. So I'm going to secure those once again with rivets, and then I'll do the final position of this one. Let's measure over here. Right now we're at 14 and a half. Way too much. Here we're at 14 and 3/16. We'll just push it a little bit more. There we go, 14 and a quarter. So let's drill it and rivet it. Now we just need to go file off all that little bit that sticks out. Here is the air distributor grill that goes inside. And to make sure that the hole is big enough, and to make sure that these holes can reach the corners, these bolts come out of each corner. So as long as these bolts can go in the corners of the hole, will be good. And to get this out, there are these little plastic tabs that attach right there on both sides. There we go. These are all the bolts and the washers and little plates to hold this up into the unit on top of the trailer. And here we can see it's the washer, and then that big plate goes through that indoor plenum. So you put it like that, and the bolt slides through that hole fine, as long as this plate isn't locked down on it. All the bolts are staying up, and we'll go see if this fits through the hole. All right, that fits. After hours of work, finally have the hole big enough, and now I need to put this patch back in. It still has the crud all over it. And I did wire wheel this too. Using acetone again. Now I'm applying butyl tape to the 3 sides of the patch. And here I'm pulling off the backing tape, and I'm cutting away a little triangle of the butyl tape from the corners so that it forms a 90-degree angle without having a big wrinkle of extra material there. Next, I'm lining up the patch as best I can with the rivet holes, and then I'm pressing it down to compress the butyl tape between it and the roof. Starting with the pop rivets. I didn't manage to align all the holes perfectly, so sometimes I had to use the drill. And the final rivet. All right, we have the patch back in. I think tomorrow we can get the AC unit up here. And that sounds like it just involves putting a bunch of the self-leveling sealant around the square here and plopping it down on top. I think this will leave a better surface for the self-leveling sealant to go on if there's not the butyl tape leaking out everywhere. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Once again, my awesome neighbor Scott and his dog August were here to help with this trailer project. And here Scott has devised this ladder on a slope to pull the air conditioning unit, which weighs 80 pounds, up to the top of the trailer. Wow. Look at that.
Public school education, buddy.
That's like you planned it. So the instructions for this unit say to put the self-leveling compound all around the square roof vent hole, and then you just place the AC unit on top. It's a little confusing because there it looks like the gasket's already on the roof, but on this unit, the gasket is already attached to the bottom of it. Now I'm applying a lot of the slap sealant all around the edges of the square hole, and I'm also putting it onto the patch because that'll be harder to reach once the AC unit is mounted. Having worked on the roof of the trailer for a couple days now, I'd actually been able to test the strength of it by standing just on the frames where you can see all the rivets going across the roof. In fact, while working on the aft vent, I didn't use the plank at all. Nevertheless, I was still pretty concerned about Scott and me being up on the roof while lifting an 80-pound AC unit. Since it's hard to see precisely where we're setting this down, my housemate Eddie is down below guiding us. Before the AC unit really settles in place on the sealant, I want to make sure that the plenum fits in properly. And here I'm satisfied that it's in the correct position. This is the last piece I have to install in the air conditioner. It's the outlet air duct. And first I have to take down the plenum. I didn't find the instructions super clear, but I'm pretty sure these are the screws we used to attach the duct. Alright, that's mounted up there. So that cable there connects to this here, which I guess is the control unit. But while I'm here with the plenum down, I want to make sure that I have a way for the cables to get out. And there's already a hole drilled there, so I think I'll make that larger so that this can pass through. And if you drill your own hole, just make sure that it's high enough above the bottom of these brackets so that the plenum can sink in, because it does have this lip here. There we go. Now we have this accessible to run the power at some point. Putting the plenum back up, and just be really careful not to over tighten these bolts because they don't take much force at all. And now for the same screws to attach the plenum to the air duct. You can see the sandwiches are down nicely onto there. And we can still reach through here to grab the control cable when we need to. Of course, this goes up here, but we're gonna install that at a later date because I don't want to get this all scuffed up in the meantime. That's the AC unit mounted. We'll deal with the electrical installation at a later date. Make sure to label or keep together any screws or small parts that go with other components that you're going to be installing at a later date, because it'd be very easy to lose track of these items and forget what they're for. I'm really pleased now how the roof is coming along with the AC unit mounted and the 2 vents installed as well. You may have noticed there are 2 other vents I haven't talked about, but I'm going to deal with those later. Now for the next important job, thanking my neighbor. Where's Scott? Where's Scott? Where is he? Overall, this part of the project cost just over $1,100 and took about 6 hours to complete. Thanks again for joining us, and hope to see you next time.